I'm going to be brief because you're not really here to hear me. You're here to hear our excellent panelists tonight. We get to hear from a group of students from high school to college to after college and hear their real life perspectives on how to succeed in college and some of the obstacles and barriers they face if we can. And also, we'll have an opportunity to hear from some policy experts in the latter half of the panel that'll talk a little bit about how everything that we're exploring tonight is relevant to conversations going on right now in Capitol Hill. In terms of setting the stage, I thought it was important to reflect on the fact that right now, all of us, particularly us at the National Urban League, we're pretty obsessed with some of the real practical challenges that our young people are facing, as in Ferguson, Missouri. And we have an affiliate in St. Louis that's run by a great president and CEO, Mike McMillan. And I was struck when I talked to him about the tragic shooting death of Mike Brown, that he said he didn't think that anything could be worse in Ferguson except for that. And so that really gets to the context that lies at the core of the National Urban League's mission, which is economic justice, parity, power, and civil rights. And so as we start switching to think about college, a couple of numbers I wanted to share with you about Ferguson. The unemployment rate there is 19.5%. The local community college is where most of the students head to try to get their college education, but only 25% of students complete the 2-year program or transfer to a 4-year school. The majority of the public school students that feed into the college are black, and they qualify for free lunch. But for the students who do make it in Ferguson and elsewhere, college is worth the struggle. College grads versus high school grads earn $400 more a week, according to Forbes magazine. And they are also 2 times less likely to be unemployed, which is pretty important in times like these. So today we want to, again, talk about how we can help more African American and other underserved students to access and complete college. And I just want to give you a quick overview of a recent report that we completed which talked about who is the traditional or the average African American college student today, and what can we do to make their path to completion easier. So it stems, if you want to go back one slide, from our core empowerment goal that every American child would be ready for college, work, and life. And we established this in 2010, which was when we celebrated 100 years of service at the National Urban League. And our goal, as I said, was to identify what the African American average student looks like today and how we can be helpful. And so we completed this report as part of a consortium of organizations that are looking to find solutions to contribute to the conversation that's going on now with policymakers about what financial aid should look like to help students to succeed in college. And there are some key findings that came out in the report, and there are copies that I hope you got when you came in, and I hope you'll read it. So just a few things we wanted to point out. The first is that the majority of African American students are considered non-traditional. What does that mean? It means that they're not going full-time, straight out of high school, uninterrupted, and graduating in 4 years. So instead, the average African American student is most likely working, might have taken some time off, might have to take time off before they finish, might be a single parent, and is much more likely to attend a community college or a private for-profit school. Another key point is that the majority of African American undergraduates need to take at least one remedial course. And that's important because, as we know, those remedial courses do not count towards your degree requirements. And so the more remedial courses that you need to take in order to be getting to actual credit granting courses, the more money and time you spend in your college program. And then finally, the majority of African American students receive Pell Grant support, but only 14% of independent students, which means they're not getting resources from their family, receive the maximum Pell Grant award. And that's a key note that you'll hear more about today, because this has to do with the choices that students make in terms of their course load and their workload that could allow them to actually receive more funding. Next, we have a number of recommendations. Just to pull out a couple, we think the Pell Grant remains critical as a pathway to college for underserved students. And there are a lot of sub-suggestions we have that talk about how that gets done impactfully. And we also know that financial aid alone is not the answer. that students need information, guidance, and support to understand how the choices they make about their course load, their workload, and how they approach the financial aid program helps them to be successful. And then we have a number of others, increasing access to social safety net programs that can help with financial loads, enhance career advising, provide universities with support so that they can take more of a hands-on role in not only educating their students, but in helping them to get to graduation. And finally, we are working tonight and beyond to ensure that we remain focused on helping African American, low-income, and non-traditional college students to complete college. And we think it's important to note it's not just about money. Again, we have many students who are the first student in their family to go to college, or have other challenges that require additional support so they can be successful. So with that, just a couple of housekeeping remarks. The hashtag, as you see tonight, is Mama I Made It. We encourage you to join us as we live tweet, and you can follow us at NUL Policy. Also, and you'll hear this note again, in the second panel, we are privileged to have a key staffer on the Senate Help Committee, which is where the education policy work is happening, and those remarks will be off the record. So other than that, feel free to tweet to your heart's content. And thank you again for being here. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful panel, led by our moderator, Juana Summers, who is a reporter with NPR. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Juana, and I encourage you all to give the panel your attention.
Well, thank you guys, first of all, so much for coming out. We're really excited for this conversation, and we hope it can be really informal. We want it to be a conversation between those up here on stage and with you all, so we definitely wanted to make sure we leave a lot of time for questions. First of all, let's introduce the panel. Starting on my left is Valencia White, who is a graduate of Alabama A&M University and the Urban League of Greater Cleveland's Project Ready. Next is Dion Jones, who is a graduate of American University. Next is Monty Helms, who is a graduate of Eastern Senior High School. And last is Kaya Pack from Benjamin E. Mays High School and the Urban League of Greater Atlanta's Project Ready. The first question, this one is going to be for all of you guys. If you could tell me and the audience, what does higher education mean to you? And I'll start with you guys who have graduated from college. Seems like a little bit easier for you all.
Can you guys hear me? How about now? Good?
There we go.
Okay. Higher education for me is something essential. It's a weapon. It's a foundation to put you in different environments, different situations that you'll never thought you would get in. It's your escape ticket if you need one. It's essential, especially for us in our African American community. It's something no one can ever take away from you. So, and it's out here, so that there's no really an excuse for not having any type of form of higher education.
What about you, Dion?
I think for me, when I think about what it means to me and why I care so much about it, my great-grandmother was a maid who cleaned up after white people. My great-grandfather couldn't read or write, but they went to work every day, and today, the actions that they took, they have may be called Aunt Jemima or Uncle Tom, because my grandfather couldn't read or write, so people could not pay him what he deserved to be paid, and he didn't fight back because he needed to keep that job. My great-grandmother could be slapped by a white woman, could be cussed out by a white woman or the family that she was working with, and she just stayed there silent so she could keep her job, so she can continue to afford to put her children through college, and in return, I'm the fruit of that seed. And one of the things there's a quote that says, from the worst times of life, fold those into a narrative of triumph, and I wanted to be that narrative of triumph for my great-grandfather and great-grandmother, and so higher education has always been important to me, to honor the sacrifice that they made.
What about for you ladies?
Okay. Higher education to me is to leave my environment and to learn more than what I'm learning right now in the DMV. So when I graduate from high school, I want to travel the world, and with doing so, I would need education. Therefore, I would know what I'm learning and different cultures, lifestyles, and languages.
Higher education to me, wait, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Higher education to me means financial security for my family when I grow older, so that they won't have to go through what my parents and my grandparents went through when they grow up.
So you've listed a lot of things that are really important about higher education, but it's also not really easy, is it?
No.
So I was wondering if you guys can talk some about that and your experiences in higher education. What came easy and what didn't come so easy?
Well, I am a first generation college graduate. Originally from Cleveland, Ohio. My mother's education was junior high, and so coming into the Project Ready, the Urban League Project Ready program was a divine situation. I didn't have that support at home as to, well, what's college? What are the steps? How do you get it? Everyone says go to college, but there are a lot of people who really don't know how to do it. So if you're telling your child, you have to go to college, okay, with saying that, you have to have a plan as to how to get them there. So, and I didn't have that. In the Urban League, the Project Ready program, that's what they did for me. It was not easy. I had to accept the fact that I am a first generation college student, that I did come from a low income household, and I did not know all the answers, and I needed help. A lot of people are not so easy to accept and to say that they need help, and I needed help, and the Urban League gave that to me. So college was, I've always been a spontaneous person, just to go out and leave. So college was an experience. It was a lifesaver. The Urban League, the Project Ready program, was definitely a lifesaver. I can say I would definitely not be sitting here if it was not for the Urban League Project Ready program.
I think what was easy about getting to college first, what was easy about that is I've always, as I said, knew that I wanted to go to college, and I've always taken self-initiative even when I was younger. So filling out the applications and all that stuff, that was easy for me. I went to what is considered a dropout factory, where less than 50 of the kids who started with me graduated with me in 2010 when I graduated high school. And I went to American University, that's one of the top universities in the country, but I realized that when I got there, I hadn't been prepared K through 12 to succeed at that school. And so my school offered a lot of programs to support students who do come from such backgrounds. However, many kids don't get that option. So many kids go to, whether it's any type of higher education setting, if they go unprepared to succeed through that based on what their K through 12 education looked like. And so that's a universal story, not just mine.
It's a really good point about K through 12 education. I was wondering if you two can talk a little bit about that and what your experience is like in K through 12 and how that's preparing you for college, and if you feel like it is.
Well, my K through 12 experience was, it prepared me for college. Well, it's preparing me for college, but not the college process, application process. Applying for college now is harder than what people make it seem, because not being able to visit all the colleges you want to go to or all the colleges you want to apply to, it's hard because you don't know how the environment is, and all you know is the statistics that are written on the paper, or if they have your major, or if they don't have your major. So applying for colleges, it's more so either, how can I word it? It's more so either you're going to actually want it and you're going to visit the college, talk to the counselors, and write your essay and see if you get accepted, or you're just going to go with the flow and, oh, I'll see if I make it.
My K through 12 education is a little bit different. I came from a predominantly white school, which I did feel was preparing me for college, but the school I'm in now, I don't feel as if it's as preparing as the other school. It's a lot more they could do to prepare us for college, and I do a lot myself so that I can be prepared, but everyone else in my school, they don't have those opportunities to prepare themselves. So I don't believe they're prepared.
Let's stick with the college process for a second. I'm curious, for everyone on the panel, what questions do you feel like either aren't getting answered for you now about how to get from high school to college, or what questions do you feel like weren't really answered during your applications process when you're making your college decisions?
Well, I think, my school, number one, it was overcrowded. So there were about 500, it was 2,000 kids there for a school built for 1,000. So it was about 4 counselors who had about 500 students each. So number one, the counselors weren't equipped to teach kids about the college process or the application process. Most of it was getting kids' schedules together, making sure that those kids who were sort of falling off the track, trying to help them get on track in high school, trying to get people literally out the door, not trying to get them out the door into college. So for me, my counseling office did not, have a center where you went and prepared for college. So I had no questions answered. But like I said before, I've always been one of those people to take my own initiative and do things for myself and seek help. And so I had a plethora of caring adults in my life to help me do that. But there are many kids who don't. And there are many kids who have tons of questions that never get answered.
Valencia, it sounds like you agree with a lot of that, or it resonated with you.
Oh, absolutely. As far as, especially on the guidance part, the guidance counselor part, and a lot of questions that I wish I could have, I would have known as far as what resources does the university offer, whether it's tutoring, whether it's financial workshops. You never know what a college, other resources that are based towards you, what they offer until you actually get there. So I think that's something institutions need to really highlight in their applications, in their booklets, or in their visits, and actually bring more students on campus, actually go into the communities that that are underserved, that have a partner with the Urban League or the Project Ready program, and bring those students into the schools.
When you two are looking at application packets, the fancy brochures you get with all the nice pictures of how pretty and green everything looks, do you feel like when you're reading those college application materials, you're visiting colleges or you're looking at their websites, do you feel like they're inviting to you as young black women who are interested in going to college?
In a way, yes. I feel like they are, but I feel like they could do more to be more inviting and help us to get into college and to stay into college and to graduate from college.
I think the brochures are more so, they grasp your interest, so they make you wonder, well, I wonder how it really is on campus. But for me, yes, it is helpful.
Kaya made a really good point. Getting into college is one thing, and staying in college and actually graduating is like a completely different story. Talk to me about what your universities or the social circles you had around you did right to make sure that you were graduates instead of just another one of those statistics, who started out college but who didn't quite make it through.
Well, because I was independent, there were a lot of financial barriers that I had to overcome, but my school it's full of resources. I went to a historically black university, and it was a blessing because it was resources for me, our type, so it wasn't anything that I had to really compete with another culture from, so it was more focused around me, and they offered work studies, co-ops, internships, if you needed to talk to someone spiritual, because it was in the South, so if you needed Bible study, you needed prayer, and I definitely needed that going through college. So it was an experience. It catered to everything that I needed as far as feeling at home. I had at least 5 mothers, from custodians to people in the financial office, everywhere, so it was very, very welcoming. I felt like home. I didn't feel as if I was out here by myself. So they really catered to what students of the African American community needs as far as resources, is to feel as if they're not going through this alone, and to graduate on time.
Yeah, so at American, we have a program that's called STEP, which stands for the Summer Transition Enrichment Program. When I started, it was 40 students each summer. Now I think it's up to 60. But they take students of color and first-generation students. They bring you there the summer before you start your freshman year. You take classes. You meet with all offices around the university to get acclimated to the university. You stay on campus so you can get a feel of what college looks like and what it feels like. After that, all students don't get that though. So when students do come, we also have our Center for Diversity and Inclusion, which that program is ran after, and we have an associate director whose primary job is he's responsible for retention and making kids stay in school. So he runs the mentorship program that has older students mentoring younger students. You're connected to community service opportunities in other offices. They are your go-to person when you want to connect with financial aid. But most schools don't have that, particularly A lot of African Americans are still highly enrolling in HBCUs, and our program is so successful because of an endowment. If you think of Harvard, they have a similar program, but they're extremely successful. And Harvard has about, I think it's a $30 billion endowment, and if you add up all the endowments of HBCUs, that's less than 10% of Harvard's. So I think one of the key things that we need to talk about is investing in those schools that, particularly our students of color, are highly enrolling in. HBCUs graduate 20% of African Americans with undergraduate degrees, so we can make sure that these students are succeeding through school and offering them programs such as this.
Money is another great topic to talk about because, again, college is also really expensive, which I can vouch from personal experience. Talk about the financial struggle of thinking about going to college for the two of you and for struggling your way through it.
One way that I wish my school helped us with financial process, other than prepping us for financial aid, is scholarships. They give us scholarships that help with your arts, such as dancing, writing, and singing, but not more so for academics and just essays wise. So it's more so auditions for scholarships, other than writing papers.
Well, at my school, they don't even talk about scholarships or any college application process until you become a senior in high school. So I think that they should start as early as a sophomore or maybe even a freshman, because if you start signing up for those scholarships or grants or Pell when you're in sophomore year or junior year, then you will have a better chance at acquiring more money than if you start late.
Stick with you for a second. If your school's not talking to you about that until you're a senior in high school, where are you and other students like you getting that information about these scholarships to apply?
Personally, I'm like the type of person to go to my counselor and bug them about getting this and that, but not everyone's like that, so they don't get money, and they just have to settle for whatever they can get, and they go somewhere they don't want to go because that's all they can get.
What was the experience like for the two of you navigating the college financial aid process?
Personally, I think there needs to be a project-ready workshop in every high school, middle school, everywhere, because in my high school, I didn't learn about the financial aid and the scholarship process. That all came from the Project Ready program. And so that was very beneficial, but going through college, like getting scholarships is one thing, but one thing you have to make sure is a scholarship sometimes can maybe be a one semester type thing. And so you have to keep reapplying. Through college, my freshman year, I came back to Cleveland and I worked as an intern over the summer at the Urban League of Greater Cleveland. I saved that money to put it back towards my tuition. In my sophomore and junior year, I did a sophomore, junior, and senior year, I worked part-time, well not part-time, but a summer intern with PNC Financial Services, and that money I saved, and whatever was left over from my tuition, I put it there. And while in school, I worked as a part-time residential assistant and a part-time co-op with Teledyne Brown Engineer on a contract with NASA. And so for all that money, I had to keep going back. Because I was independent, it hurt me my senior year because I had income, but I kept putting it back towards my tuition. They don't teach that in college. So while you're in pre-K, middle schools, high schools, it needs to be everyone shouting scholarships, grades, scores, because at the end of the day, that's what gives you your ticket. Now, if I had a chance to go back and do it again, I would have definitely focused more. But you know, you have to accept the cards that are dealt to you. But I wouldn't change because it made me the person who I am. So I am able to sit here and try to reach out to everyone out there, saying the process starts early. When you think you're getting ready to have a child, that's when you need to start planning on, okay, how am I going to prepare this child to go through high school, pre-K, college, you know. So it's the child's responsibility, it's our educator's responsibility, but most importantly, it's the home, because that's where it starts.
I think something that's been echoed across the stage is sort of a lack of information that's being disseminated in the African American communities, and particularly majority African American schools. One of the things that I had sort of learned from, like I said, a plethora of caring adults, whether it was an individual teacher. So maybe my counselors weren't doing it, but we had an individual teacher who would probably say something to the class, or, you know, like you said, you know, programs like Project Ready, Upward Bound, these type of individuals. Other people did have, you know, caring adults in the home. One of the things is filling out FAFSA. I always get that. I don't know if it's FAFSA or FASFA, but filling out that application. You know, I had always been told because I was poor, I was going to get some type of money. So I never really was worried, and it really did work out for me. I filled out that application, I applied for a few other scholarships, but at the end of the day, American University took really good care of me. And one of the things that predominantly white institutions are doing, like Vassar College, which is a women's college, Harvard, when Larry Summers, when he was there, one of the things that these colleges, these top colleges are doing, are they are really offering robust financial aid to poor minority students. But again, as I said before, they have large endowments that are allowing them to do that. So Vassar, for example, 40% of their kids, students of color, are Pell Grant eligible. But they also get scholarships from the university and end up only having to pay $6,000, which they may only have to have one loan, but it's heavily supplemented with work study. So these are sort of things that are helping kids get to college and navigate that college process, because the college financial process, because these top colleges are actually going into these schools and heavily recruiting them.
I'm gonna make sure we get to audience questions. I have one more question for you guys from me though, is just if we're sitting here in Washington DC with a lot of people who influence education policy and who work in this arena full time. So I'm curious for each of you, if there's one message you really want them to come away with from your experience in education, what is that?
It would be first to know what's going on in your community. Know what barriers our future are facing. What's going on in the homes? What's going on in the communities? What things are they being? What things are they trying to maneuver from just to get to college, just to graduate high school? Know what's going on in those, and then create opportunities for them to surpass that. Create those resources, because you have to relate first. And if you can relate to your community, if you can provide those resources for the students, I mean, I'm pretty sure these two young ladies would be more than happy to benefit from them.
Chanel, she mentioned Ferguson earlier, and I don't think just higher education is important to get that. It shouldn't just be important to our community; it should be important to all communities. And I think that providing people access to higher education and getting them through that, people graduating, could actually prevent another Ferguson. So what do I mean by that, right? In college, it's time for us to really sort of, yes, the book intellect is very, very important. But in college, talking to people, creating a dialogue, having debate about your beliefs, getting to know someone else, particularly in diverse environments, you start to gain a moral intellect. Dr. King did that when he went to Boston University and he studied Gandhi. That's where he learned nonviolence in an educational setting. And less than half of the people who live in Ferguson have an associate's degree or higher. I think it's about 50, I think it's like 45% or something like that, of the people who live in Ferguson. But just think if all of them had the experience to go to a diverse school, to a diverse learning environment, and learn philosophy or, learn politics and things like that, and learn how to engage in their communities, if Ferguson would have really happened.
What about the two of you?
One message that I have to say is take time out your day and actually visit high schools in your community. Speak with the students and also the guidance counselors, and be able to have a one-on-one understanding on what the school needs or what any high school needs to actually help these students, well, students like me, to go to college.
My message would be, it's about the kids. Like, that sounds kind of like, of course it's about the kids, but most schools they want to graduate the kids so their school can look better, so they can have a high graduation rate, so they can look like, oh, we're a good school, we're accredited, but they don't really actually think about the children. It's about their future and their success, so that they can give back to the next generation.
All right, let's open it up to questions from the audience.
Hi, my name is Corey Lyons, Carlos Says Foundation, DC. I'm also a DC Achiever Scholar. I have a question for the American graduate. You say you went to a dropout factory, and being a graduate of Washington, DC high school, we are known what dropout factories are. Sorry, I talk very low and I talk loud. So what made you different? Like, what made you actually get up and come to DC? What made you stand out? What gave you the drive and ambition to take the next step to get a higher education, to leave your dropout factory?
Yeah, so I tell this story a lot. So and now you've gotten me to talk about my favorite person, Oprah. So thank you. So my favorite person in the world is Oprah. And Oprah tells this story that when she was little, her grandmother was outside hanging clothes and saying, "Oprah Gail, you gotta watch me now because you're gonna have to learn to do this for yourself one day." And Oprah said this thing that we all have in us called instinct hit her and said, "No, grandma, no, that's not gonna be my life." And she makes a joke now because her grandma said she wants her to get some good white folks to work for her. Oprah makes a joke that now she has good white folks working for her. And for me, I had that same instinct. That same instinct that I just didn't want to survive. I wanted to thrive. That, you know, that God really did have something bigger than what I was seeing and, you know, in my life. And that instinct drove me to really just get up and do something about it. And if that was just asking questions or saying, you know, well, I heard about this school called Harvard. How do I get there? Or, you know, watching the Cosby Show. Or what's that sweater he's wearing? What's Hillman College? Can I go there? You know, asking questions like that just really pushed me forward.
Good evening, Rashim Rook, College Success Foundation. Ms. Helms had, during her closing in her message, talked about us going back and reaching out to students like her in high school. But you all as the young adults, are there any practical, real activities, events, programs that you can see college students putting into action, being the younger adults, the ones closest to their age, and actually starting some dialogue or discussion going back to the high schools? What type of activities can we as the older adults support you all in doing in reaching back to the high school students as well?
That's a good question. Okay, so at my school, I go to Easton Senior High School. At my school, every Wednesday we have different people from either college or in the Navy. They come and they help us tutor with our homework, but that's all they do. So for college students, it would be better if you all came and actually mentored us and spoke about your experiences and what we should look out for when going to college and the struggles that you go through. So basically the pros and cons in college.
So one of the things, so I serve on the board of America's Promise Alliance. That's an organization started by General Colin Powell to end the dropout crisis. And we just came out with an op-ed with Mrs. Powell and General Powell and Laisha Ward, who runs the Target Foundation. And we're challenging adults to go into schools to be mentors to kids. We just found out that there are 20 million kids in our country who have dropped out of high school and need help getting directed back. And we have this thing called Don't Call Them Dropouts. These are kids who've been strayed away. And so we're challenging people to be caring adults in young people's lives. Because most kids, that's what they need. I say all the time that every child wants to be validated. And what does that mean? They want to know, do you see them? Do you hear them? And does what they say matter to you? And if you validate a child, that will take them so far. And so many children need that. Like they say, you need more than just going and helping them with their homework. You need to tell them that you can really be whatever you want to be.
Absolutely. When I was in college, I mentored at the Boys and Girls Club in Alabama. I mentored in different high schools, and now that I'm a professional in my field, I still go back, even though it's not where I'm from, I still go back to the high schools in Detroit, and as a professional, I mentor there. I come to them within one class, and we sit, we talk, yes, we talk about homework and grades, but we really talk about life, and they ask me about my job, and it's beautiful because if you really sit down and you sit with our youth, they have so many questions, because they're like, well, you look like me, you sound like me, so how did you get there? And it's just talking to them, having that dialogue one-on-one, knowing what's going on in their environment, and then referring that to, I can relate to that. I came from that. I came from what we like to call the hood. I came from that, and now I'm here now. You can do the same thing. In my opinion, it's nothing worse as an African American to get also educated and also put ourselves up on a pedestal that we don't reach back and get our babies, because no one else is going to do it. So we have to bring our corporations, bring our community, whatever, to get back into these schools, into these after-school programs. If you're good at math, find a baby that's struggling in math, talk to them. Just sit down and talk with them. Get into one of these programs, Boys and Girls Club, Big Brother, Big Sister. You know, you're never too young, never too old, never too educated to reach back and help those, because we have to do it on our own. We have to take more responsibility and really step up to the plate, because if our young ones are struggling, that falls back on us. It does.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marcello Cash. I'm a recent graduate from Howard University. And my question for the panel is, you brought awareness to diversity issues and also financial crises that kind of plague the acceptance rates and matriculation of college students. My question is, do you find that there are any psychological aspects of issues or awareness that will kind of like hesitate, that will kind of bring some hesitance to you matriculating towards college, or even maintaining a systemic matriculation towards graduation? Do you feel basically prepared coming out of high school that you're psychologically ready to incorporate yourself, especially in your PWI institution? Are you ready to embrace a world of diversity, a world of culture, a world of different mixtures? Do you feel ready that you're able to access that and fully pulverize that?
PWI is a predominantly white institution.
Well, for me, I feel like I'm prepared to do anything in life. I was always taught I can do anything I put my mind to, and I can do anything I want to do. But a lot of people in high school, they don't have that person that tells them they can do it. For example, a really close friend of mine, he's never been told he can do it. He's always been told, you can't do it, try to go to school. If you don't graduate, oh well, just get a job and have a family and try to support them off of a minimum wage job. And it's psychological for a lot of them because they don't believe they can do it. And if you don't believe you can do it, then you can't. There's this quote, and it goes, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And it's absolutely true. If you don't think you can do it, you can't do it, because you're not going to put your mind to doing it.
Classmates of mine, we actually had this argument today. A lot of my classmates want to go to HBCU schools, but their only reason is because they're scared of diversity. And me personally, I don't want to go to HBCU school because I want to experience all different types of cultures, and I want to be able to learn anything that anyone's willing to teach me. Like, for example, I've traveled to Africa, Australia, and New Zealand, and there I've been able to witness and experience different things that I would never be able to experience in the DMV.
Well, first, I just want to say that you can get a great education whether you go to a predominantly white institution or HBCU. I went to American University, but I still believe in my core that the best school to educate a black man is Morehouse College. You can go to these schools and you can go to these HBCUs and you can still, have the opportunity to study abroad, engage in programs like the Public Policy International Affairs Fellowship at Princeton or Berkeley. You can have all these opportunities by going to any school. I think the key thing is to making sure that our kids are prepared to succeed in both an HBCU and a PWI, because there are many kids who can have the same experience going to a school, a high school that didn't prepare them from college and fail at a HBCU, and that same kid can fail at a PWI. There are many white kids who can, like for example, in Mississippi, there's a town called Wiggins, Mississippi. There was a story about it where a girl, she was a valedictorian of her class and went to the University of Mississippi and flunked out because she just was prepared. So I don't think it's the idea of being psychologically ready to succeed in diverse environments. I think it's the idea of being intellectually ready, skill set ready to succeed in college.
I do think it's something of some type of a psychological challenge, because when someone from an inner city low income household hears college, they automatically think money. Well, I don't have money, mama don't have money, you don't have an education, how am I gonna get there? But there's ways, scholarships, grants, programs, that assist to that. But it's like he said, a lack of information. It's not even that the student doesn't know. Sometimes the parent doesn't know. So it's frustrating because a lot of parents can hinder their child for their miscommunication or misunderstanding or miseducation of what college actually is and what the process is, that they kind of hinder their child. And one thing that I think is essential, especially coming into college, you can compete with anyone on any type of level. It doesn't matter if you go to a PWI or HBCU, as long as you have your grades, you're socially intelligent, because a lot of social media, a lot of kids, they're afraid to sit in front of someone or talk because they're so used to this. LOL. Yep, I said that. They're used to that. There's no more, and even in the corporate world, we're so used to sending a ping to someone that's across from us in a cubicle that we won't get up and have a regular conversation. So we really have to prepare our students that, yes, you have to look the act. In my school, they called me First Lady, because when I came to class, I wasn't dressed in pajamas, slippers. No, I came ready, and we have to. It's important. I got my position in college at NASA. I didn't even have to interview. I got into an elevator with a suit on, going to class. There was a director over the diversity co-op program, and he said, "Do you have a business card?" And I did. And I did. And he was like, "Oh, okay." You have to come prepared. It's all about preparation. You can have a 3.4 and you can have a 2.5 and compete with someone that has a 4.0 that only focused on academics. But you have your 2.5 and you're president of that, your SGA that, your SGA of that. You can mingle with people. That's teamwork. That's you can present. More than likely you'll get picked over that person. So it's all about information, and just us as college graduates be able to sit here and tell you that have indispensable value. That's it. Indispensable value. Because once you can show that you can provide value to a project, to a position, to a company, you're there.
Hi, I'm Sean, and I'm a graduate of DC Public Schools. And I can relate to what you were saying. My mother, back to the Oprah story, only thing she said was, you have to get a job. You have to get a job. But raising my kids, I'm totally different. And I tell her, you can do and be whatever you want, and you are never to be intimidated by any culture, any color. Nobody's better than you. You can do the same. Now, my question is, as far as high school, and this is to just about everybody in the room. After walking this path with her as a high school student these last 4 years, what I've noticed is there's no longer Black history in schools. And to me, this is one of the main reasons why these kids act and do the things that they do. They don't know their culture. We were taught our culture. And they walk around looking like anything. They dress like anything, and they do anything. How do you feel as far as them taking Black history out of school? And I must say that it started with George Bush and the No Child Left Behind. Since then, there hasn't been Black history in school. So how do you feel about that? And also, growing up, the Black community in high school is taught to work for someone. The prestige private Caucasian schools are taught to be entrepreneurs. So therefore, even going into college, you're still taught, go get this degree so you can make this type of money, not go get this degree so you can own your own. How do you feel as, you're still in college?
No, I graduated.
You graduated,
Yes.
okay. So on the college side, how do you feel as far as, what would you speak to the children who are now getting ready to go to college on that behalf? I know I asked a lot of questions.
Trying to keep up with them.
So first is the Black history taken out of schools.
Yes.
Second is our kids being taught how to work for someone, basically be laborers instead of being entrepreneurs. So therefore, there's no business classes, there are no finance classes in DC public schools. Well, in Black minority schools. How do you feel about it?
I think it's a shame, because if you don't know your history and who you were before and what you can become, you really don't look forward to anything. You kind of just go with the status quo of, okay, all right, this is the process, I'm going to go through that, and you don't have any alternatives for it. So I think it's a shame. But because I went to a historically Black college, I did have that, we did have our courses, but I think it's a shame, and it definitely needs to be looked into and put back into our colleges, into our middle schools, high schools, wherever. As long as there's a pencil and paper on the desk, there should be something about African American studies in that curriculum. And your second question was?
That was the finance,
Entrepreneurship. I think it's a blessing to know that you can be an entrepreneur, because if a student or a child has a young idea at a very young age, and you see it now, there's a 9-year-old who loves bow ties, and he has his own company as a CEO of his own bow tie. So it doesn't have to be this magnificent technology or new system or big thing. It's just, what are you good at? How can you get it to relate to other people in your community? Can you get people to buy it? I think it's something that needs to definitely be taught. You don't have to go and work for someone. Yes, you can learn from someone, but you are more than capable, like any other person, whether he's fair-skinned to the darkest person, that you are more than capable to own your own business idea and put it out there in the community.
In regards to the Black history being taken out of schools, many colleges do have African American Studies departments where kids, no matter if you go to any type of school, where you're able to dive your interest in that. As far as the public schools, obviously that's unfortunate, but there are very innovative ways, obviously because like there are testing standards now that teachers have to make sure that their students are learning and things like that, but there are innovative ways to teach about Black history or Black culture through that. For example, like with the Ferguson thing, there's a hashtag Ferguson syllabus that is teaching, that is where teachers can go and put that hashtag in Twitter or anywhere else and look at resources, how they can teach Ferguson at all grade levels. So that's one innovative ways that teachers are putting Black history and Black culture back in schools. When you think of entrepreneurship question, yes, you're right. There are a lot of people who are being taught, to work for someone, things like that. But it's not just important that it is important that kids know that, yes, if you want to start your own business, you can, but also that you can work hard and work your way up to the top somewhere and become the CEO of American Express. So I think, I think we should be careful in making it seem that it's bad that we're saying, you want to go and work for someone. If a kid is saying, oh, I want to go and work at American Express, we shouldn't be discouraging them from doing so.
All right, and that is a good place to leave it. I want to say thank you to our panel. They've given us a whole lot to think about today. We're going to take a quick break before we move on to more programming.